In the last section, we created a new class called the person class. We're now going to use this class to create a new instance of it and then somehow call the printName method assigned to that class. To create a new instance out of this class, we need to first define the main function. Remember, anytime Dart runs, it's going to look for a function called main and execute that first. So if we want to create a new instance of this class, we need to do it inside of that main function. So I'm going to go up to the top of the file and give myself a little bit of space, and then I'll place the main function. So I'll write out void main, set of parentheses, and a set of curly braces. By the way, we never really spoke about the void word right here. Remember that anytime we define a function, to the left of the function name, we place a type that indicates what type of value we are returning from this function. And so before we had something like string over here when we did that printName function previously. If we have the word void right here, it means that we are returning nothing from this function at all. So now that we have the main function put together, we can use this person class to create a new instance of it. So to create a new instance of a person, I'll first declare a new variable, which I will say var and then lowercase person. So this right here is the variable declaration. And then on the right-hand side, we will create a new instance of the class person by writing out new person, like so. So that gives us a reference to a new person object that has been created inside of our application. On the line underneath that, we can now attempt to set the first name property on the person instance. So to access this first name property directly and set a new value on it, we can write out person.firstName equals Steven, like so, or whatever your name might be. Notice that we were able to set the value of first name right here as a string specifically because we labeled its type inside of the class definition. If we had instead tried to assign an integer to this thing like 1, 2, 3, we would end up seeing an error message. Well, we should anyways. Let's try. Sometimes you have to kind of do a little bit of stuff to kind of get this thing to do right. Come on, I know you think that's an error. Let's try running this code. There we go, that's better. So now when I try to assign an integer to the first name property, it's saying, hey, you can't do that. You're trying to assign an integer to a string. All right, so I'm going to flip it back to Steven like so. So now that we have a defined first name property on our person object right here, we can call the printName method on it, and I'll expect to see the name printed out on the top right-hand side. So I'll do person.printName, like so. And don't forget the semicolon on the end. Now if I run this code, I should see Steven appear on the top right. And sure enough, I do. Okay, so this is a very quick example of how we work with classes. But I want to kind of point out something inside of here. Notice how creating this person object right here and then setting the first name property on it, to do so we had to write two separate lines of code. Well, I don't know about you, but it sure seems like every person that we create inside of our application is probably always going to want to have a first name. In other words, how often do you meet a person in real life who doesn't have a name? I think everybody has a name, or most everyone does. So I think that in the next section, we should figure out some way of making sure that every person who gets created inside this application always instantly gets a first name property assigned to them, rather than creating the person and then having to define that first name property on the next line. So let's come back to the next section and we'll figure out how to do this all in one step right here. So quick break and I'll see you in just a minute.